Hey folks, Layman Pascal here on the Integral Stages Meta Podcast series, where we podcast podcasters, broadcast broadcasters, and explore the people trying to bring forth higher, deeper, and more transformative ideas through online media. And that includes this year's Integral European Conference. Here to talk about the challenges and opportunities of a virtual conference, as well as maybe the history of Integral European conferences in general and his own ongoing development and other projects, is Bence Ganti. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay,
Welcome.
good.
Thank you.
Part of me wants to do it Italian, like Bence Ganti.
Oh, that's not quite it, but it's okay. The first one is better.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we should just start by telling everybody when the conference is, and also what are some of the highlights? What are the events that you're personally looking forward to?
Yeah, so this will be the second global online IEC, because IECs are typically in-person conferences, just like any GUC conference should be. But now that we have COVID and everybody stays at home more or less, then we need to move to the online space. That we did last year. And actually, first I thought that we do just a small online thing to bridge between the two live conferences. And then it turned to be the turnout was so big, the people, so many people came, more than 1,000 people came, then actually it was the biggest IEC ever. so we discovered, that, okay, then we do the next online this year, because we still cannot travel, as we all know.
Yeah.
And IECs, though the name suggests it's European, it's not anymore, it's global. It started European, but grew out to be globally attended, even the biggest global event in the integral community. So we need to wait until we can fly again and meet in person. So we hope for the next live conference in next year, 2022. So this year online again.
So what's personally exciting for you about this one? What are you looking forward to experiencing and seeing there?
Well, first of all, meeting the people. That's always the best in conferences, though there is always a lot of important theory to share, exciting experiential process to experience, potential transformation to go through. It's all there, but below this or behind this or woven into all this is the community, and it's just so energizing and heart opening and mind opening to be with these people for almost a week, usually on the in-person conferences, 6 to 12 days, depending how long people stay. There are different options. But in the online, it's 5 days. So just being together, and usually I don't go to sleep. I just for maybe 6 hours, and the rest I sit in this box, which is too much of sitting. But I don't mind during those 5 days because we can't stop socializing and meeting and exchanging.
Yeah.
So it's really socially and relationally a high time of the year. So that's one thing, and there is a lot of exciting things coming up, and new presenters, old presenters, and new presenters. So just the topics for the mind, are very interesting as well. And basically, my job is to open a space for all the contributions, and then the space is filled up with so many applicants, usually always more than we can accommodate. So, I can mention if you want names, but I can also show the gallery, probably the presenter gallery. We have 100 presenters. So obviously I don't have time to go through by one, but maybe just for some examples. So that's exciting too, that I will go into.
Yeah, sure.
And what is probably very interesting for many of us who are interested in integral is that the Ken Wilber movie is just about to come out in June, the 4th of June. The movie Grace and Grit will come out officially. We have been waiting for this for 2 years. The movie is already been done, but they were waiting for the distribution, and now it's all set. So basically the conference is happening just 2 weeks before the movie release. And we invited the director, the writer and director of the movie, Sebastian Siegel, and also Stu Townsend, the actor who plays Ken Wilber. So they will join IEC, and we will interview them and see what's the interior experience of being Ken Wilber and writing, his life. So
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. I
yeah.
definitely agree with you. For me personally, going to conferences is so much more about the cultural communion with the other people. Like, it's nice to hear talks. I love the ideas. I like to give talks as well, but it doesn't compare to meeting people and being able to blend with them a little bit. That's feels like something historical is happening when that goes correctly.
Exactly. You see that for something historical, I think that's what we integralists have, this extra sense of being historical or evolutionary. Yeah.
So one of the benefits of doing it online is you can get a lot more people to come from all over. But what are some of the difficulties? Well, in terms of converting it to an online phenomenon, what have been some of the challenges for you?
Well, we need to leave out some stuff that can be done only in person, and that makes it even more, exciting and experiential. So obviously, sitting at screens is limited when it comes to experiential. And we even have ecstatic dance. So we'll jump up and dance in front of the camera, but it's in front of the camera instead of together in the room. So the live IECs are really, I think, exceptional and phenomenal because we put so many experiential communal events there, and make the talks only 50%, and the other half, the entire other 50%, is about communal, experiential, transformative practices. And we can do some of them here, but not all of them. So I hope that those people who will, because you are right, more people will join because it's easier. You just sit at home, turn on your computer, and you're there. But I hope that those people who didn't come so far to the live conference will come. We kind of get the groove here first on online and then join us. Because I still maintain that we need to meet. And though the world is being online is so fashionable, and if you are online, you're cool, but we just cannot replace human connections. And so I see online as a useful tool that we should and must use. Why not? But we shouldn't forget to get together physically. And it doesn't matter if you have to fly. Some people in the States or other places have some difficulty thinking, oh, I'm flying so far. And I was also flying wherever there was an integral conference, because I have been always feeling that this is my tribe. This is where I belong in planet Earth. It's a very, very serious thing to feel the purple layer belonging, or magenta layer, right? Where is my tribe? Where do I belong? And for many of us, this is the integral community. So I think we should devote our resources to meet at least biannually in person.
In your life, when did you start to really appreciate how important embodiment is, both in groups and in one-on-one experiences of learning and development? When did you really get clear on how important showing up in a body is to making these things work?
In 1996, exactly, because that's when I met my mentor, who was a transpersonal psychotherapist in Hungary, trained in the San Francisco Bay Area in the 80s, the heroic era of the transpersonal movement opening. So in my country of origin, he was the kind of guru behind the scenes, where some people went who really wanted to get enlightened and transformed and rip my ego open, and and all that. And for those for whom traditional psychology was boring, like me. So my day-to-day life was going to the university and then going to my mentor's home, and then all the magic happened there. So that's he put me into this. And actually I met Wilber's work for 3 years later or 2 years later. So in my personal life, first there was all the study of psychology and all the experiential stuff. And then with Ken Wilber's model, it all came together. It was like really like a mental unification in the new sphere, everything coming together. And it was just natural to feel that it set a life for a path for the life, basically. So that's how it happened to me.
I noticed on your personal website that you've got a Hungarian language version. And I was kind of curious what you think are what are the cultural contributions of the Magyar? Or what do you love about Hungarians and their culture and their history? I'm
glad you asked this and not start to criticize immediately my government, which I hate. So actually, I don't want to go there because then I would complain. So, but regardless of the politics of these days, the culture is not politics. Politics comes and goes. Governments and leaders come, but culture sticks. And I think culture is a long-term story. So Hungarian culture has a depth in emotions and in spirituality. So for Hungarians, embodiment is very natural. And the workshop scene in Hungary and the psychotherapeutic, postmodern, personal growth oriented, humanistic, transpersonally based psychotherapeutic scene is pretty embodied. So you don't have to tell them that please be embodied. Naturally they are, because the culture are. People like to touch each other, and they talk about emotions more often, which is a good news and the bad news, as Wilber would put it, right? The good news and bad news of all things. The good news is this, that it's actually deep and connected. And the bad news that sometimes it's too much. And sometimes you just need to let go of the drama and be more easy. And so you might know that I'm also an American citizen, and I have been living 7 years in the Bay Area. So I have a really real first-person experience of the two cultures, and why I like both and what I don't like in each. So I think no culture is good or bad, but each culture is good news, bad news combo, have both sides of the coin.
That makes me curious about two things. What do you think is the good news, bad news about American culture? And do you think there's a difference between North American integralism and European integralism?
Very good questions. Personally also, I have some experience with that. Because I think there is no integralism without culture. That was one of my realizations through my travels. I also traveled to many other countries. The two countries we named, I just lived there, but also traveled and workshopped and I think American culture, the great thing is this easiness, that less drama, more driven, organized from the head, from the mind, and I think it's more less emotional, less purple, less red, and really more blue, orange, and also green. But the center of gravity is supposedly orange, but we know that there's also a thick blue layer, especially in the middle. And that's also, to a certain extent, the difficulty with America, I think not just for me, but for people who come from countries with old cultures, that we tend to miss the purple roots, which are not just theoretical roots or not just history book stuff, but it's in the people. It's how you relate, how you feel, how you relate. This very same thing is what people run away from, I think, when they go to America, because it's easy, because it's free of that, or much little. And the very same thing that I hear some people miss, and then they go back to their country for origin to recharge, either move back or go back from time to time to recharge. So So it's a very interesting thing, and also Hungary has postmodern and post-postmodern. It has also green and teal. And of course, America has too. So, but the Hungarian would see green or teal, from its own cultural perspective. And there is no country on earth which would see a sterile blue or teal layer. We all see it through cultural lenses. And that's something we should talk about at integral conferences, actually.
Yeah, we definitely, we aim to the world-centric and the cosmocentric, maybe a little bit too hastily. Mm-hmm. And there's this other layer that has to negotiate between those. Mm-hmm. But it's elusive. It's hard to get your hands on what that layer is because, is culture the same as nationality, right? It doesn't seem to be the same as countries because countries can change. So, what's your overall feeling about the cultural layer and the role that it takes and how it's the same or different from nations?
I'm not sure if I understand the point that you tried to make with the question.
Yeah, I guess it's a couple of points in the same place. Yeah. Yeah. Well, one part of it is like the thing about the North American countries is a lot of people came here with a lot of different cultures. So we're not sure if there's an American culture or a Canadian culture, or whether am I a Ukrainian living in Canada or am I a Canadian? So. Yeah. What's the difference in cultures and nations? And when we think about, the individual and the global and the cosmic, and there's this layer between, what are the things at that layer? Are they countries or are they sort of swarms of culture?
Yeah, I think American culture that is based on the Constitution is a mental culture. It's created mentally.
Right.
Like a lot of folks came together from all these countries, right? And figured that we should live somehow here, in the new continent. I'm talking about, the 1700s and 1600s when the first fathers, etc., came, and then they gradually got there to create the Constitution and the United States. And I think that's the good news again, that the people coming from so many backgrounds and nations and so many deep roots created a mental agreement, the Constitution, how we are going to live. And I think that's the power of America. And that's why it was the first democracy, because it didn't bother and care about, the previous stages. But that's also a mental construct, and mentally, you cannot create a culture. Culture is simply not just mental,
Yeah.
It's more. It has to do also with blood and ancestors and the land, and all what I'm saying usually sounds very tiring for a postmodern ear. I want to leave behind all that shit. I'm just a global soul, the brother and sister of everybody on our planetary community. I think that's green. I think that's kind of postmodern, but not integral yet. I think integral, and if we approach it from spiral dynamics, yellow stage, second tier, integrates the previous layers. So yes, please go back and search for your purple roots. Even if you're North American, and even if you don't have much info, just little info, go and find where your grandparents came from, or grandparents, and where is that village and where is that cemetery, and go and have a coffee in the coffee bar there and fly there, and at least a little bit strengthen your purple roots, because it will not take away from your integralness or higher selfness, but it will add to it. I think the Western culture is lacking purple and magenta, second layer, second level, and we should transcend and include, not just simply transcend, as we know in integral. So even the European nations and the Hungarian nation is lacking purple. I've been to Africa and I see the actual real living purple that hasn't died out, and it's well and healthy. And it's not just about childish magic bullshit stuff, not at all. It's about very healthy and happy and easygoing human connectedness, less alienated, more connected naturally, without needing to do any workshops. Also, they have the bad news, but this is really a good news that any Western culture should, I think, take back a little more than it's usually, accessible.
Conferences are sort of like little cultural experiments. And the good news is people can learn things from each other, and they can participate in activities that kind of cultivate a new cultural spirit in them. But I'm curious about the bad news. I imagine you've been to a lot of conferences. What do you think in general that they don't do or do too much of that holds them back? What goes wrong with conferences?
Yeah. Honestly, I've been to very few conferences. I've been to all of the integral conferences in the USA because before we started the European integral conferences.
Yeah.
But I haven't been too much of other conferences because they were usually boring for me. And the reason they were boring, of course, because it was only talk. It was only cognitive. It was only head. No experiential whatsoever. Now, integral conferences in the United States started to have some experiential, so that and the atmosphere was way better than any other usual scientific conferences. So the integral, this kind of, we are kind of changing the world, and we are in the edge of evolution, and the future is happening here. This all was there. This communal, exciting communal, elated state. So, and that's particular to the integral community. I have been to transpersonal conferences too, and the biggest transpersonal conference just 3 years ago, which is very sweet. It's like a hippie camp, druggy camp with scientists talking sometimes on the stage. So it's more that direction. And when you ask what is missing or what, I don't know. Actually, what I can say about the integral conference is that in the United States, I missed two things badly. Probably that's why we, including me and my friends, created a different style of integral conference at IEC. I missed experientials more, so let's talk more experientials. And I also missed acknowledging and giving space to non-Americans, so other cultures. Right. And I think that's a shadow of American culture, not just the integral community, but the integral community in America carries that shadow, probably without knowing it or without really knowing it. But at that time, I wasn't yet living in America when I started to go to the integral conferences in the States. And it was almost painful that all of us who came here from very distant continents, a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort, which means a lot of dedication, a lot of heart energy and dedication. And for some reason, we couldn't, hold, we couldn't get much space we couldn't get much microphone time, so to say, or stage time. More like being a participant. And then actually I approached the organizers of What Next conference. I think it was 2015 probably, or 13 or 15. And I told them this. So they invited me to organize an international panel. And then I did. And so in America, we started to work on that, to have more internationality. So, and now IEC is full of experientials, actually. So I think we really managed to get the pendulum to the other side. Yeah. But we are not so scientific as the American Integral Theory conferences were. Mm. So the ideal would be combining the two or in between. You see, I would really welcome more scientific presence to find the exact balance. Because for me, somehow the idea of integral, the centauric, brain and heart, or the marriage of sense and soul, as Ken Wilber titled his book, is where is that perfect balance, right? Where is that? Where is it? It's here. It's here. How you organize such a complex thing like a conference with so many players, so many intentions, so many kinds of activities to hit that perfect balance. So I think that's a practice, that's a challenge, that's an experiment to do. Yeah.
Who else besides you has really been important in helping the European conferences?
For the first 3 conferences, Dennis Witrock was my partner. So basically it was the 2 of us who really pushed it, and we organized a team with whom together we did it. But someone has to do the job from Monday to not Friday, Sunday, every day, regardless of what. And that was usually Dennis and me, and taking all the risks and not making money, but still doing it next year. So it was the 2 of us. And then after 3 conferences, he left because he couldn't make enough money. Not enough, just a little, little perk. But he needed to go and make his living and his, build up his life financially and etc. And I have my Integral Academy running in Hungary successfully. Also, I have private clients and I do workshops internationally. So I can afford, not to make money on it, or even losing, or sometimes gaining a little perk. But, if I would depend on this, I would have also stopped the IECs. That's the truth. So it was the 2 of us. And also when we started, there were 3 other friends. One is Miriam von Grön from the Netherlands, and another is Kevin from France, and Raquel Torrent from Spain. And Raquel Torrent was at that time, I think, the founder and the president of the Spanish Integral Association. Later, she stepped back, and gave these roles to others. But the 5 of us basically burst the idea of Integral Europe. And then out of this bursting process, I proposed that we should do a conference. We do an Integral Europe, then come together. Let's come together, and that's called conference. Actually, literally, conference, the Latin word means bringing together, people to meet. That's what it means, So I was the one who came out with the idea of, now let's do a conference out of this think tank. And since I already had the Integral Academy going with all the networks and and workforce, then I offered that as a base to organize. And that's how it got to Hungary. When you organize a conference, you are not just idealistic, but where is the office? Where is the infrastructure? Who is working? Who is risking? And all this. So it became Hungarian, the organizational core team, and it stayed here because of practical reasons.
Going forward, like in the future, do you think the ideal thing is that conferences should make money, or do you think we should be making money in other ways and then providing these conferences to the community?
I will answer that in a minute. I just don't want to leave out some other names.
Oh, yeah, please. No, go ahead.
Yes. And then let's go up to that question. Then Hannah Hündorf is also an important partner in this. Hannah, who is a German lady, a Buddhist teacher, Tibetan Buddhist meditation teacher, and she joined the IEC team when Dennis and I was building it up. The 3 other friends that I mentioned then stepped back because they didn't have time to do it. They just burst it with us. Yeah. And Dennis and me kept the torch, went on, and then Hannah joined. And now Hannah has a core role since Dennis left. So basically, she is deeply into the selection of presenters, who is in, who is maybe not in, which is a delicate issue. And you need to be really good-hearted and smart. So you need a heart and you need a brain and you need to know the network. You need to know the people. And since she is also there with me for so many years, 7 years now, and before these 7 years, she was in the integral German movement for another 10 years before that, and me also in the European and American. So we have a long history of knowing the players, and that really helps when you need to select that.
Sure.
Mostly it's about the content, but partly it's also about dynamics, and to create harmony and peace in the field. That's very important for us when it comes to dynamics. Consciously seeing it and trying to create balance and so that it's an optimally balanced field. So right now Hannah helps also in that, and then you guys can check out the team page on the IEC website, integraleuropeanconference.com, and then you find the team members and all the other beautiful people who work with us. So about making money with conferences. I heard that conferences are famous of not being a big money maker or being a roller coaster. And I think I don't know really much about other conferences, but I sense as I'm doing it that it's not really a money maker unless you have big sponsors, which we don't. So we don't have big banks or I don't know, Mercedes-Benz, this kind of, rich multinationals that probably medical conferences are funded by. We don't have any funding. We don't have any big sponsors. We have some small sponsors, players of the integral community, but they are typically just other, entrepreneurs with smaller companies or loaners by themselves, providing something. Loaners in the sense that providing it alone with an assistant or two. So we don't have corporate funding here, nor corporate sponsoring. So basically, we have the tickets that we sell, we have an income, and we pay all the costs from that, and it comes out around even, sometimes less, sometimes more. But unfortunately, I never earned more than $400 or 400 euros a month. If I take the most profit I get and divide with the months I work.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous. So it's ridiculous. So then I decided not to worry about it. So, and Hannah too. She doesn't even want to take a payment because most of the stuff that we employ, they need a monthly payment. They won't work for free. The web designer, there's a lot of bureaucratic work need to be done. But usually those who carry the torch and the heart of it, we don't do that because then it would kill the spirit. This has to stay in inspirational, spirited. And you cannot put into the box of a monthly salary, and if I get it, yes, if I don't get it, no. So IEC would be long over if it would be so. But I don't know. So I really hope that because I think we should be rewarded. Like I should be rewarded. It's a little bit of shame that I'm not, but I don't. I still continue. I don't want to be tipped over by that. It's more, the mission is much more important. Integral, I see integral as a mission, as an evolutionary revolution mission. I think it has maybe 300 years to really unfold, or 100. I don't think at all that integral is not enough popular yet. So it's just been around for 40 years or so. give it another 100 or 300, and then we see.
Yeah.
So I sense this higher purpose that needs to be there, that needs to be enacted, and I feel that I'm serving this, and that's the most important thing.
That's beautiful.
Mm.
There's sort of a meta integral discussion space between integral and some of its cousin communities.
Yes.
And I know that Bildung and meta modernism are very prominent in Europe.
Yes. Yes.
Do you find yourself engaged with people from those communities? Do they show up for these conferences? What's the relationship there?
Yes, they do. The meta-moderna movement shows up at IECs. The founders of it, and so the core people are giving presentations even in 2 weeks in this IEC and the last IEC. So we are in very good terms with them, and we are in very good terms with the spirodynamics community, with the circling community, with the teal community, the reinventing organizations, community, and the holocracy community. So often IEC serves as an umbrella for those who are either pointed out by Ken Wilber or somehow associated naturally with the integral field. So that's where we meet and then exchange. So I am engaged to that extent, but I am not engaged deeper or other than that, because I don't have time for everything. So I need to be careful with the resources. But I like them, so they are all smart and exciting.
I'm glad the holacracy people are there. I just interviewed Brian Robertson the other day. Very, great. Very nice feeling conversation.
Yes.
I heard that you were at Davos in 2019. Is that true?
That's true. Yes.
But what did you do there, and what did you learn there?
Yeah. So somebody opened a consciousness hub at Davos, so that we kick in with some, postmodern, presence to the orange people, and it was very, very smartly orchestrated, and a lot of influential people, came through our space, and I was invited to present and represent integral theory, integral thinking, the integral approach. So I gave a presentation about the stages, integral through the stages,
sure,
and also analyzed the cryptocurrency, phenomena through the Wilberian stage lenses, because one of the topic was that,
sure,
and also gave a workshop and experiential to those who came. So it was beautiful. I loved it. The energy was so high. Actually, I felt a lot of healthy orange.
Yeah.
Like healthy orange, like a lot of influential entrepreneurs, investors, and they also had this sense. Many of them, I don't know if most, but many of them had this sense of we are kind of creating something new. Also, this revolutionary impulse.
Yeah.
Which is, so I think good orange is absolutely necessary for integral too, and orange shadow is also something we should diminish or leave behind or just reduce.
Yeah.
So I see actually the whole game as the stages. Purple is less, put more. Orange shadow too much, put less. So it's the balance of the stages.
Yeah, you gotta make each one's got to be healthy and then balanced out with the other ones.
And you should see in which country or culture or which situation, Davos or an integral conference or whatever you are putting at focus, which is more or less,
Yeah.
So it's not just generally we should put more or less of certain stages, but analyze the situation and then see what would be the right balance of things. Maybe that's a bit of a spirodynamics angle. I'm also trained. I'm also have been trained by Don Beck as an integralist. Wilberian integralist went to his course to get more deep into that. But I'm also doing people work for 20 years. So I have my own insights, realizations, and additions to Wilberian theory. Yeah. So that was fun. and very inspiring.
You mentioned you might have some websites you want to share.
Yes.
Yeah. Do we want to try that now?
Yeah, let's try that. So the title of the conference in 2 weeks is The Future of Collective Evolution. That's what we are going to explore as a mutual focus and common focus. Sitting here in the middle of one of the most craziest, crisis we ever had, COVID, now what is this? What is happening with us? So definitely our collective evolution is challenged or put into an interesting orbit that we should explore together. So we will explore generally the future of collective evolution, and also particularly who in the integral community thinks what kind of meaning making is going on in integralists concerning this transformational phase that we are going through with the COVID. And then here are the keynote presenters. Ken Wilber, I'm sure I don't have to introduce. We have Charles Eisenstein, who is dealing usually with postmodern, probably into integral economics, and also some philosophical angles, like making sense of sense making. And this lady is very exciting, very, very important contributions. She is one of the directors of the program that is going on in Bhutan. Bhutan created the Gross National Happiness Index, as you might know.
Yeah.
Let's measure a country not in GDP, but in this gross national. And she is in a director of that program, working with the Bhutanese government. So she's going to come and keynote at IEC, sharing more about this subject. And then we are going to relate it to integral theory as well in the stages. Mm-hmm. And Gabor Mate, who is actually a Hungarian living in Canada. You mentioned Canada.
Yes, I'm in Canada. I've been to some of
Okay.
Gabor's talks.
Yes. So she's actually, I think, a Jew who fled the country after the Second World War, when there was the big Holocaust here. And then he settled, I think, in Seattle or that area. So, and then he's a doctor, a physician, and a therapist who deals with trauma and also psychedelics. So the real transformative stuff, trauma healing and psychedelics and spirituality. He's not very versed yet in integral. He's new to integral. So actually he's going to present his ideas, but I hope he also will open up to integral more.
Yeah, I think a lot of the community is very resonant with him and his ideas.
Yes, exactly.
So it would be interesting if his mind opens to the map a little bit.
Yes, and to the integral community and people. So, and as we discuss here, it's not just about they talking to us, but it's a resonance. It's a mutual exchange, and everybody gets a little bit transformed after these gatherings. So, speakers included. Now we have Miriam Martin with the integral parenting from the Pacific region of the States, and Steve McIntosh from the Boulder, Denver area, I think, Colorado. And Steve is, representing integral politics. Probably he has one of the most articulated ideas how integral understanding should be articulated through politics, and a very good understanding of the American politics. And we are going to sit him together with Indra Andan, who is a political psychologist from the UK. And together with Jeff Saltzman, they will create a panel beyond their keynote presentations. They will also create an integral politics panel comparing US, UK, Europe, and the world politics from integral lenses. And with Mark Foreman, we have the psychotherapeutic side also, like with Gabor Mate. His new book, The Monster's Journey, just came out. He writes about trauma, and he's known about his first book, Integral Psychotherapy. That's an important contribution to the integral community.
Yeah, we have one of the series on the integral stage is about authors and their books. So we've had Mark and Steve on a couple of times.
Oh, great.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
I really enjoy Mark's work on trauma. I think that's really important.
Yes. And actually, Terry Patton got ill recently, and he cannot come. He cannot participate this time, but he's always there. So I'm sure next year he will join. Now we're just wishing him with great love, the power of healing, and welcome him back when he's ready.
Yeah, get well, Terry.
Yeah, get well, Terry. We love you. And then Ellen Combs, who created with Ken Wilber the Wilber-Combs lattice. Mm-hmm. And he's also joining IEC this year. Now, if I go to, these are the listed keynoters, but if we go to the gallery, then I just scroll down slowly so you can
see. We'll just get a sense of it.
Yeah, sense of it. And what is important, as we discussed, that multinational, players.
Yeah.
Anouk is from Holland. Barbara is from the United States. Bettina and Elke Fein, they are from Germany. So. Eivind is from Sweden. Eugene and Tatiana are from Russia. Khalid al-Shabrini is from Egypt. So slowly, more and more people are showing up. Integral is from the Middle East.
Right, nice. Important. Yeah, that's important.
Yeah. As I scroll and see these faces, with 80% of them, I already have a history in terms of knowing them or organizing. So it's so dear actually to work with all these people.
Yeah, I have a personal connection with about 30% of them.
30%.
But it makes me very happy that there's a lot of them, because I sometimes think maybe I've interviewed everyone already. No, there's a lot more.
For you, there's a lot of more people to reach out to, right? Good. Peter Luigi is from Italy. Peter Mary is from Netherlands and UK. Raquel is the lady I mentioned from Spain. And Rika and Ruan Viljoen in the left, they are from South Africa. They are one of the pillars of Integral in Spiral Africa, in South Africa, from the Spiral Dynamics community. And here is Suzanne Kugreuter, that we probably all heard about or know, at least those who read Ken Wilber. And he's bringing his colleague from the Caribbean, Akasha. Thomas Habib just did a very interesting survey. He surveyed the integral community. Do you know about that?
Yeah, I participated in his survey.
Okay. So
I'm still pondering the answers that I provided.
You're pondering on your own answers.
That's right.
So can you tell us more what the survey was about? Because
he was looking at sensitivity in terms of people who've moved into integral spaces. And when I gave the answer, it's not something I'd really thought about much. And I started to give the answers and I thought, oh my God, I'm very sensitive, but I'm also very not sensitive. And I think, right, it's very hard for me to answer those questions because I'm watching a show and I'm weeping, but it doesn't bother me. It seems fine that I'm freaking out. So it's very, very tricky to figure out from a trans-sensitive point of view, are you sensitive or not sensitive? And it's very intriguing to wonder if it is highly sensitive people who are more likely to evolve into these spaces or not.
Right. So Tom's hypothesis, maybe there is more highly sensitive people in the integral community than other communities. So he did that survey with the integral community and he's going to present the findings at this IEC.
Yeah, there's an old idea in shamanism that the shaman is a person who gets sort of psychologically sick but figures out how to heal themselves. And I sort of think that there probably are a lot of people who are highly sensitive, but they're the people who figured out how to work with that rather than just suffer from it.
Yes, exactly. That's a good point. Yeah. So Thomas Steininger and Elisabeth Debold is a German and American couple. Elisabeth moved to Germany, to Frankfurt, where Thomas lives. And they are representing the emergent dialogue with a global, community. So they are bringing a very interesting question in. Usually, is integral theory Euro-American centric, Western centric, or is it universal? Because we think it's universal, right? But people from India, from Africa, maybe they think it's we say Euro-American centric or Western centric. That we might be blind to, so
it's universal in principle, but we might be doing that in a not universal way.
Maybe. Now, I heard this critique for a couple of years at IECs, but I haven't yet heard an alternative.
Yeah.
Then what is the alternative, which would be more global or more inclusive, or
exactly.
If not Euro-American centric, then what centric? Is there a global centric? We are back to the cultural question.
The culture question, yeah.
Nevertheless, they are good in kind of holding that question in the room and inviting a lot of people from other continents in.
Yeah, great.
The dialogue. And with Thomas Björkman and Jan Artem Henriksson, you get the Metamoderna movement that we were talking about. Thomas is one of the driving forces behind it. But the two of them also are the driving force behind the Scandinavian adult development research. So in Europe, one of the strongest research and stronghold in academia of adult development and its research is in Stockholm and Sweden.
Yeah.
And they are at the epicenter of it. They organize conferences around adult development. They even created a manifesto, which I was also part of. I traveled there and worked with them in Scandinavia, in Stockholm. In Sweden, a manifesto that actually came out in the biggest national media, that we need adult development to move forward in culture, in evolution. So they really can bring this to the mainstream and working on that. So a great job, a great service, and very smart people. Yeah, so I could talk about everybody or anybody. So I rather.
Yeah, we'll just do this quick overview.
Yeah, quick overview. So we did the overview, and you can come to integraleuropeanconference.com, and under the IEC 2021 online main menu, you find the presenter gallery. Now, the other page that I wanted to show you is we call it the landing page or the general info page, which shows that here you can book your ticket. This is where you can actually book the ticket and join the IEC. And Ken Wilber endorses IECs that you can find here. He finds it's very sophisticated and up-to-date and genuinely integral. So thank you, Ken, for the endorsement. And here are the numbers that we expect based on last year's numbers. 1,000 participants from 60 countries, 5 continents, and 100 presenters, which we right now factually have. Here you find again the keynoters listed.
Sure. And
here is the 2 Hollywood stars creating the movie about Ken Wilber and playing Ken Wilber, Stuart Townsend, that we started the conversation with. And then the type of programs that IECs usually have, and also the online has them. We have academic presentations, general presentations. That's me, by the way, talking about the classical Wilberian stages. And experiential processes. This is how it looks in a real IEC space, and in an online space, we do as much as we can. And Also, we put a lot of emphasis on shadow work because we believe that being genuinely integral, we should bring to light the shadow and work with the shadow. And that's why IECs are designed to give space for that too. And of course, the great socializing, you know, that we are all keen of. One of them is the global sharing circle, especially in the online IECs, when I will invite, I'm leading this one and invite anyone, from the global community sitting there, go with 1 or 2 minutes and share whatever is in their hearts and minds, whether it's greeting people, whether it's promoting their activity, whether it's reading a poem, whether it's singing a song or sitting quiet together for a minute to be present and connected. It's all there in the global sharing circle. Yeah. So we have some of these activities that are spontaneous. I call it flow processes, going with the flow, unplanned, no structure, just a time frame, radically open and present, and there we go. So one of that will be the global sharing circle. And we have a strong invitation for artists. I think there is 15 artists who will show up at this online IEC. We are creating a virtual gallery and also an artist night, probably the second night. The 20th of May will be the second night, a Thursday night in the sense of European time. That's daytime in the United States and Canada. So that's where the artist will get the stage and they will introduce themselves, they show their work, we walk through to the art gallery, and the musical performance will be there. And these are the topics that are usually present, like you could suggest in any integral conference that's really will bury an integral.
Sure.
Putting into the 4 quadrants, some of the topics that will show up. And for those of you who have never came to IEC before, I definitely suggest if you scroll down, there is a video here. We created an IEC movie, and this is the trailer of the documentary. Definitely have a look. It's, I think, 2 minutes, not painfully long, but it's a very good representation to see how an IEC goes. And then you can buy the tickets by going to book my ticket, or in the main menu there is also a ticket shop, a menu that brings you directly to the ticket shop, so it's easy to reach. These are the prices. We created a standard ticket, a supportive ticket. Those of you who want to reward me and the team, we who do it, and 2 sponsor tickets and the student ticket. And anyone who finds the standard ticket too expensive can just come with the student ticket. So this is how we balance out the financial flow and the possibilities of people and the intentions of people. Yeah.
Well, that's great, Bence. Thanks for walking us through that.
You're welcome.
Now we can get more esoteric and personal.
Okay. Let's go. Let's do that.
What would I like to know? How has your relationship to meditation and spiritual practice changed over the years? And where are you with that right now?
A question dear to my heart. I'm sitting almost every day. And when I'm not sitting, I miss sitting. So basically it's in me, it's in my heart space.
Yeah.
And every year I go to at least one long retreat, which means 1 month silent sitting, vipassana. Sometimes 2 times 2 weeks, or 1 time a month, or a month, and then smaller ones throughout the year. But I really love sitting, and I miss it. I should have more, so if I would follow just my heart, probably I would sit more.
Yeah.
But I have so many, responsibilities that, so So part is a repressed recluse in me. And right now, actually, I'm sitting in a forest, which you don't see because you see my background, but this is a chalet in a forest, in a mountain. That's where I live. And the calling to quiet and meditation brought me up to the mountain from the city where I always lived before. So that's also part of that. And I'm just practicing. And I have some
you're doing a Vipassana style?
Yeah. Vipassana style.
Has your understanding of how to do Vipassana evolved over time?
Yes, because I've been to different schools and I have some experiences. So I started with Goenka, 8 years in the SN Goenka Vipassana, 10 days. I did 17 of the 10 days retreats.
Yeah.
And I also was part of the organizing team at one point. And I find it a great practice and a genius way of explaining Dhamma, and also sometimes painfully rigid in amber, in blue. So I went to India, to the international organizing community, and tried to persuade them to do something differently, just to be more, real on the ground where it happens, but it didn't get through. So after a while, I relaxed back from that, and my concentration wasn't enough strong. So I started to search for another type of Vipassana. I wanted to stay in the Vipassana because I just like non-religious, spiritual, but non-religious, sit, go deep, and if possible, have a guidance, that knows it better, or is further on the path. So, and then I went to the Pa'auk Sayadaw tradition, which is the jhana practice. So a strong emphasis on the jhanas, the concentration trance states, the samatha, depths of samatha, and through that the vipassana, and actually a whole new world opened up. So such a detailed, clever, deep world with a lot of progress. I met a lot of sitters, a lot of teachers, and it's a reality. It's not just the Eastern philosophy. People really go through these experiences. I also had some. So I'm practicing that for maybe 10 plus years now. And I sat in Burma with a Sayadaw in his monastery a couple of times. I sat in the United States in the International Meditation Center in Massachusetts at Bear. Also a month with Pao Sayadaw there. So that's my spiritual practice background, and a little bit of shamanic practices too. Yeah.
What about subtle energy? Is that an important part of your practice? And do you think of it as real in a sort of scientific sense, or more as metaphorical?
No, I for me it's absolutely real. The least metaphoric, but one has to experience it. Otherwise, there's no way it could be real for someone. It's just a theory or new age bullshit or whatever. But I am sensitive to energies. I use them in my workshops. And in Wilberian terms, I have a lot of Wilber 7 psychic telepathy and synchronicities, and noticing that it's not by chance, and feeling being guided by a deeper spiritual flow, how events come together, having an attention on that, building on that, prioritizing that over mental strategies. So that's something that has developed strongly through meditation, and that I definitely use. And also it's part of my offering, which is called integral flow experience, where flow exactly is a deeper meaning than Csikszentmihalyi's flow, not just a personal peak experience, but a transpersonal connectedness to the field, and being, guided or carried by the unseen spiritual field. So this part of the spiritual, scene or stages is strongly there. When we go to the subtle stage, Wilber level 8, subtle, seeing lights or spirit beings in trance states or shamanic states, I had some of them. It's not my strongest muscle, but I have a little bit, so that I believe in all that, you know. So I have, a mix of these in my personal path.
I know you were instrumental in setting up the Ken Wilber Gratitude Fund, which is on the one hand a lovely way to honor him, but also helps us all understand how we need to be with our elders, so to speak,
Yes.
right? Honoring
Yes.
the people who've helped us and come before us.
Yes.
But there's a tension there between, on the one hand, validating what we've been given, and on the other hand, trying to grow past it and innovate new things. So while we're honoring, let's say, the standard model of Integral, where do you emphasize things differently? What would you tweak? What do you add? Where do you emphasize things differently than Ken? Or what's your interest? Where do you things changing and growing at the leading edge?
I see. Yeah, good question. I maintain the stages as Wilbur put it. So I don't say, no, there is not the stage, or there is an extra one, you missed it. So for me, that's a core. And actually, I'm supported by my mentor, who I mentioned, had his own stage theory, which the world doesn't know because it's unpublished internationally, but here we know about it. And it perfectly matches Wilbur. So there's too much evidence for me, from Wilbur and other sources to not to, take it seriously. So stage is the same. What probably I see, I don't know if it's different or more, but for me, it's not about bringing people up to the higher stages, or higher stages good, lower stages not good, but it's all stages deeply good. And we all have all the stages inside. And the way I see people in my workshops, these are 6-day retreats, experiential group practice retreats for 6 days, where a lot can open up. Over the days, people open and deepen, and we get just into fantastic experiences and we spaces that are inaccessible in everyday life and inaccessible in short workshops, 3 hours, one day. So deeply opened up we spaces. There you have all the stages present. Person A is at level 2 magenta. Person B has a red opening and breakthrough. So etc. up to the stages. The other one is having a past life experience. Another one is having green, humanistic, I love everyone flow. So this is how I see, with the integral lens, that seeing people in different moments where they are and how to orchestrate a group like this.
Yeah.
The flow of the group, where the members are at different stages at the same time, how to orchestrate that into a coherent flow. And of course, it's not me orchestrating, it's the field orchestrating. I am an instrument of the field as the facilitator. In old ways, we would say the therapist, but it's so narrow. I rather say the facilitator.
What do you keep in mind in order to be a good facilitator? What do you think are the principles that help that flow unfold?
To keep nothing in mind, to empty the mind. That's the principle I keep in mind. But actually, literally, I empty, and I become one with the field that's acting itself out. So I'm like a dancing priest in the room who is not giving a sermon, but maybe doing a dance that is coherent with the field, and the facilitating the field to play out itself through the people. It's a completely different approach to group work, to group therapy. I just don't like this word therapy. Though I'm a psychotherapist, a clinical psychologist, that's my background. And I also did more traditional forms like psychodrama, which is very good for stage 3, 4, 5 mostly. And that's it. But for those stages, this is one of the best too. but then at one point after my first divorce, when my personality was shaken and in crisis, which means a big opening up and letting go in the divorce, process, then I gave myself permission to step out of the traditional group therapist roles and techniques and start to work from the moment and from the flow. It was in 2010, and that's when all this flow style of work started, for me. And then I felt this is it. That's what I was holding back for years, because I didn't dare to let go of the professional, frames and rules and etc. So I'm basically a flow facilitator with a psychotherapeutic background and training, and then I can use that or let go that and step into a wider, field. So for me, integral lands really strongly on people, community people, where group work, workshops, spaces.
One of the really intriguing questions about state experience is how we keep something from it, how we assimilate or integrate rather than just having it and then moving on. And that's also true of collective experiences. When you go to a conference and you're opening and you're deepening and there's this sweetness, right? What's your suggestion about how people can assimilate that and take something of that forward with them after the conference?
Exactly, this is a state experience. So the nature of state experience that it doesn't stay, it goes, right? Altered state comes and goes, but I think the role of an altered state and of an IEC experience is an initiation that this exists, that hey, this is your higher self felt and lived, this is your deeper self, this is the way we could always be, this is the way how humanity could be, this is the future to go. So it doesn't matter if you cannot fully take it with you or if it fades, it doesn't matter, because once you have the experience, it's in you. Even if it's latent, you can open it up whenever the circumstances are ripe again, is the Buddhist way to say it. Go to another IC, go to another WeSpace workshop, which is, well led and can bring people to that state. So I think these are practice spaces for the collective consciousness. The collective consciousness that goes through these stages that we talk about at Integral needs somewhere to come out, needs practice grounds, right? And these postmodern and post-postmodern spaces where experiential collective ways are offered, that's where this consciousness can come out, and then we become it. And another point that for me, and hopefully for many, IEC and around IEC, the integral community is the reference group. That's where we feel we belong, either mentally or emotionally, but somehow, I'm sure not everyone, but many of us do feel I need a community to belong. This is my nature, my human nature, and for me and for many, this is the community belong. So I'm talking about identity, and I think that identity is derived from the reference group. So you feel who you are in your personality, not your ultimate self, but your personal self. I construct my identity unconsciously by belonging to different groups, and this is what we call in psychology reference groups. So where I belong emotionally, knowingly or unknowingly, from the guts, that's where I derive my identity, and that's where I derive my views. So views are created not so much rationally, more than by belonging and reference groups. Even if we think cleverly and we analyze, still under that layer, there is this belonging to reference groups. And I think, and this is the point I want to make, if you want to be global, or if you want to be globally integral, then you need a reference group for your identity, and this can be it, the global integral community. So IECs also have that extra effect, and that's something that you take home. And even if the state experience goes, you have this identity aspect of it.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for having this conversation with us, Bence. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you for inviting me, really, and the opportunity to speak to all those people who are listening this.
Yeah, terrific. We'll get this up as soon as we can to promote the event.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, have a lovely rest of the day, and thanks for all your work.
Thank you. And I hope you too will come this or next time, but I hope I will see you there too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you sometime.
Yeah.